and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting, Monday, January the 16th, 2017 at 9 a.m. in Council Chambers. And before we start, Happy New Year, everyone. We hope that everybody in Osoyoos has a very happy and healthy New Year. So we will call the meeting to order. Introduction of late items. There are none. No delegations. So the first thing on the agenda today is...
Motion to adopt the agenda.
I'm sorry. We need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Oh, pick us.
I'll pick the two to my right. Councillor Campbell, Councillor King, all in favor. Thank you. And Ministry of Education Rural School Engagement Report from Mr. Amenko.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. The Ministry of Education is undertaking a review of education practices and rural education funding, led by Parliamentary Secretary Linda Larson. The Ministry is seeking feedback from local government on the greatest challenges and barriers in rural education. The attached letter provides the letter that outlines a January 31st time frame for the information that they are looking for. There's also an earlier information package on a conversation about rural education in which they facilitated a discussion on 4 questions. As background information, and also some letters that have been sent by Council to the Minister and also to the School Board Chairperson relating to feedback that Council has provided the Board of Education District 53 on policy information. So in an effort to get some background information on this from the school board, I contacted Superintendent Bev Young, asking her to assist me with providing me with some information on the challenges as the board would potentially see. She provided me 4 challenges that I'm bringing forward at this time. The first one is the per-student funding formula, enrollment decline funding protection, and secondary school funding based on a number of courses offered. Obviously, the funding package as a whole causes a number of problems. These funding formulas promote consolidation and don't enable school boards to take advantage of education opportunities when funding arrives in February or March. She did recommend one of the ways that to deal with this is to explore funding options that are linked to the number of facilities that are needed to be operated and student enrollment with a base grant system. Apparently at one time the number of facilities they had to operate was the way that they received funding. A second one was staff recruitment and retention. Smaller schools rely on teachers teaching a number of subject areas and don't enable teachers to focus on their specialties. Teachers prefer to go where they can focus on specialty areas, leaving recruitment struggles in areas such as early education, special education, and teacher leaders. Recommendation would be to provide forgivable loans to teachers who teach in rural areas, or to consider some type of grant program like currently exists in northern schools. The third challenge is creating viable employment for custodial and administrative support. Current funding levels enable only part-time employment. Fourth one is a lack of mental health support. Many mental health support services are needed for many students, and access to contract professionals is very limited to rural areas. A fifth one is the facilities funding formula. Currently, amounts of facility improvement and operating grants are tied to school population. The lack of funding requires focus on priority life safety improvements and doesn't allow for preventative maintenance. In addition to the issues identified above, Council may also wish to put forward the issues related to school closure processes and school board governance. In presentations to Premier Clark and Education Minister Bernier, Council presented the need to consider local schools as more than education facilities. Schools are a core service that supports social and economic community sustainability. Therefore, school boards need to make decisions in a more collegial and integrated community development model. Council put forth the following recommendations for change to the school closure process and regulations, and there are 6 of them. The first one being that the province provide regulation on what constitutes consultation in school closure. The second, minimum 1-year consultation period. 3, future use of school facilities must be determined prior to closure. 4, school closures affecting community sustainability must have provincial approval. 5, change from simple majority to approve school closures to a minimum 2/3 majority. And 6, review governance and make a mandate of regional school to ensure 5-year planning at capital, program delivery, and school facility sustainability, and mandate minimum annual consultation with municipalities with school facilities to discuss school programs and sustainability. 2 options are being put forward to council today. Given that this is not a bylaw or a policy decision, as an administrative direction, Council 1 to Council directs administration to develop a letter for mayor's signature that will respond to the request for information as presented by Council, and 2, Council passes a resolution not to input to the education engagement process.
Thank you very much. Can I assume that you've just talked to Superintendent Young recently, and these are very
Last
recent?
week.
Yeah, okay. I think that it is imperative that we comment on the education, seeing as it was such a huge issue in this district, in Osoyoos particularly, and I'm certainly in favor of developing a letter, but I will let Councillor Campbell and Councillor King comment on it first.
Thank you, Mayor
Councillor
McCormick.
Campbell.
Thank you. One of the things that was cleared during that process and how that process started with the potential closure of OSS was a clear disconnect between the municipality and SD 53 as the school board. We made a commitment upon reneging the closure of that school that we would stay engaged and stay informed, and we've done that to this point by ensuring that we have representation at every meeting that's taken place since that I'm aware of as far as the school board's concerned. So I think it's important that any opportunity that we have to engage, give feedback, or engage at any level is one that we should absolutely take, so we don't find ourselves not in the know and surprised by anything that comes down the pipe in relation to our municipalities. So absolutely I support that, directing administration to develop a letter.
Good, thank you. Councillor King?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd support this letter full-heartedly. I just have one question. I see it has to be submitted by the end of the month. Is there any idea the time frame that they'd get back to the public with the results or any information?
I didn't see anything on the website that had any specific date. From reviewing the website, it appears that there's going to be an input process, and then there'll be some groups or individuals will be invited to have a discussion or in around the information that's been presented.
And I guess
but there's no time frame that I've identified.
And I guess our local MLA is going to share this portfolio.
That's,
yes.
by all appearances, yes, that's what.
Okay, thank you.
So can I ask, the conversation about rural education has 4 discussion questions on there. Mr. Romanko, do you see us answering in letter form at least a 1 or 2 sentence answer on each of these? And when I looked at them, I certainly did think that we should make reference to these 4 questions, and I also think that we have done a really good job of putting together pictures and a timeline of our concerns, and I'm thinking that question 4, discussion 4, share your rural education story, that might fit in there for that question. Do you?
If that's the direction of council, that's what I'll do. In a discussion with Superintendent Young, the question number 1, what's your definition of rural school, just is it's something that's off the wall relative to trying to put a handle on it. It's, she said, for example, Penticton would be considered having characteristics of a rural school, based on student numbers and that. So there's just so many variations. But at the same time, I can try and pull something together, and if council has some very specific information that they would like included in the letter, providing it to me at this time or at some later time this week would certainly be of assistance.
It seems to me that that a rural school, when I first looked at that, I thought it would be the only school in an area to service the students of that area. To me, that's one way of looking at it. If to close down the only high school in a town of 5,000 doesn't seem to make sense. It's the only school. I think that there should be, for economic development reasons, for sure, it should be kept open and not assume that because numbers are low in the district that you could close it down. The other thing I think we need to include is the fact that this is the impacts on the community. The theater, which is part of the school, was, when the school was built, the town and the regional district and the school worked together to have a shared facility, and I think that's important to state in there. And I think that possibly funding to smaller schools or to smaller districts needs to be looked at slightly differently than in a large center. If you close down a high school in Vancouver or closed any school, there's likely one fairly close that the students could attend, and that doesn't usually happen when you've got smaller towns. So I'm thinking that those are some of the things that should be included. Councillor Campbell?
Thank you. There were two things that really weren't considered when we listened to SD 53 talk about the potential closure of OSS. One of them was stated as sort of not the role or not their problem for a school district, which was the economic impact it would have on a municipality. The second one, which I felt was lacking and never really addressed in a meaningful way, which I absolutely feel falls at their feet, is dealing with vulnerable students, changing schools, changing routine, and the transportation aspect of it. That question never really got answered as to how that was going to be handled and what support would go behind that. And those were two things I think are crucial in making decisions like that.
And it kind of speaks to number 3, lack of mental health support. I think that that's certainly an area where you would see the need for that if you were going to close down schools and move. Councillor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In this new letter, if it gets support, would you also intertwine our 6 comments we've made before, recommendations we made before into this letter?
Yes, if that's, that's
I think
the
it's
direction of
important
council.
because now you're down to a committee that's actually going to look at this information.
Yeah. So there may be a point relating to, regulatory reform, governance reform that this would fall under. And in terms of sharing your rural education story, certainly the slide presentation that was presented at UBCM could be made as an attachment.
I think this is from the looks of it, this is a really good chance for us to sort of include everything in there that we feel strongly about. And I think you've got several suggestions here now. And I think that we also need to sort of point out that the fact this is a very positive, the second question, what are the positive impacts in the community? Keeping our school open was a huge positive impact in this community, as we've seen. There are more families moving here. There are people that have a more positive outlook on Osuya. So, Can we pen a letter? You'd like a recommendation to develop a letter that incorporates all of this? It may be many pages. Did you figure that out?
Yes, if I could just get a resolution to that effect, and then I
I'd make that
can
motion.
draft something and, circulate it amongst council, and council can make additions, make changes.
suggestions.
And, we are working towards the deadline at the end of the month.
Yes.
So.
Perfect.
Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Campbell, that we develop a letter. So, all in favor? Thank you very much. So that is the only thing on our agenda today. So we need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Councillor King, Councillor Campbell, all in favor. Thank you very much.